we're happy to be here. It's a great cause, of course, and let's try to get those donations up for the stretch run. But three of us are here today to talk about ADP battles for starting pitchers, and plenty of them out there. We're talking about some of those NFBC leagues. So the three of us pulled some of the ADPs since January 1st. It's been 146 leagues on NFBC that have drafted since that date. And looking at some of the ADPs we have so far for starting pitchers, we're going to take a look at some of these that are very close in the rankings, give some opinions on each of them, talk about upside, downside, and the like, kind of give you a full outlook. And then at the end, we'll get into some of our own sleepers. So want to introduce our fantastic panel here, veterans of the industry, in fact. So first, Doug Dennis from Baseball HQ. You might know him well. Doug, good to see you again.
Nice to see you too, Tristan.
And Rudy Gamble from Razzball. Good to see you too as well, Rudy.
Good seeing you, Tristan.
So let's dive right on in with our first starting pitchers here. We'll see whether I can make this this slideshow work the way we want. Okay, a little bit tight on that, but these two we've got for you is Logan Gilbert, who's going right now as a solid second-round pick in NFBC leagues. In the late second, near the end there, 27th overall. And Garrett Crochet is wrapping it up in that second round at number 30 overall. Very close between these two. Gilbert was more of your kind of consistency guy. You know what you're going to get from him. Did take a very big step forward, especially over the past year plus. Crochet had that fantastic 2024, however. So, Doug, I'll start with you on this one. How are you feeling about these two? Which would you take?
I love both of them. I mean, they're both great, obviously. I love floor early, and Logan Gilbert is that. But having said that, I would take Crochet because holy crap was he good last year. Like really, really, really good. He's on Boston now. Don't get hurt, man. If I pick you real early, don't get hurt. But I would take Crochet. I think he's a step up from Gilbert.
Yeah, I'm going Gilbert on this one. For me with Crochet, I just don't trust. He was I gambled on him on a few teams last year. I just don't trust that he's giving me the volume I need. So when you're talking about, I'm the similar way. Like I want very good floor on my early pitching, and then I'm willing to take more upside later. And I'm willing to take plenty of chances, but I can't put Crochet on for more than 140 innings. And a little worried just on his general secondary pitches. He got a lot of mileage out of the fastball last year. So for something this high, I'm taking Gilbert if I have to take a pitcher right at this in that part of the draft.
Rudy, I'm actually a little surprised on the innings pitched projection. I mean, I had initial concerns about him, and the deeper I've searched this offseason, I've been more encouraged that he might be able to repeat the number. In fact, I think he could take a step forward and get up to the 160 or maybe the 170 threshold. I don't know that Boston makes that move if they didn't think they could squeeze that much out of him, but it's a fair question to raise for him.
Yeah.
I'd love to take Crochet here. I think the upside's fantastic. In the second half, I know the ERA didn't look quite that pretty, but the skills were all very much there. And yet I'm still taking Gilbert. I love Logan Gilbert. I'm a big Seattle Mariners guy, and Gilbert's just done an awful lot in terms of his pitch mix, made some improvements there. I think he is one of the safest pitchers you can take in this top tier, the top 10 guys. And I'm with you, Rudy, in that when you're drafting an ace, I want somebody who's going to give me high return on investment.
I won't fight too hard, but I will point out that Crochet is projected to have a higher strikeouts minus walks than Gilbert has strikeouts.
Not surprised by that. It encapsulates the upside. I can see a scenario here by which he's one of the 2-3 best pitchers in the game. He certainly could reach that height. I don't know. I'm always worried about, Rudy raised the question. I always worry about absences and filling those spots. All right, let's go to our second group of pitchers. We've got George Kirby up against Jacob deGrom. In this case, George Kirby going 44th overall so far in the NFBC drafts. We've got Jacob deGrom going just behind that, 2 spots later. Another situation of a very safe pitcher, in my estimation, going up against a high risk reward guy, but deGrom, he had a decent finish there. I mean, the skills look very similar to pre-surgery. I know it's the second Tommy John surgery, and we've had huge injury questions about him lately. But Rudy, I'll start with you in this case. Do you feel any better about the risk guy in this case?
I mean, he hasn't topped 100 innings since 2019. You know, where like with a Crochet, I do maybe have concerns about that. What will his velocity be the same? Can he maintain it throughout a year doing it like a second time? DeGrom, I don't really have that worry. It's just, can he not break down again? That it felt like he was pitching too close to the sun. And like every year he'd break down. I mean, so I probably would take neither of these pitchers. But I probably would take Kirby, assuming I didn't have Gilbert. So I wasn't saturated with Mariners. I love Kirby's control. There's no reason for us to bet that his K percent's going to change from being mediocre. But I mean, if you had him last year, you definitely didn't feel great the whole year. And then you look at the end of the year like, oh no, he actually delivered on what he was supposed to. He just didn't have any kind of K percent increase, to get to the point of not being mediocre. But the walk rate's great. Park's great. Soon the ERA will be mildly in check. So I would take him. I don't think someone with DeGrom's profile I'd want before like the 10th round. That's when I'll take a chance on a guy that might only give me 50 innings.
Doug, where do you stand on these two?
Oh, I would take. So I started out with the Gilbert one, saying I would take the floor, and then I took Crochet. But here I would take the high floor Kirby. I don't like. I mean, DeGrom. Good Lord, if he pitches the full season, then boy, you've stolen something. But
Right.
What is the chance of that? I mean, I think low. Certainly that hasn't been the case for years now. I will tell you, in recent DC, I just did. All you need is one guy, right, to grab him. So that's kind of what's happening. I think is there's that one guy every league is like, I'm going to get him. I got to get him. I'm not that guy.
Right. It's almost. I wonder if the Chris Sale last season was a guy that you can get in the 10th round, and that he paid off like this. No reason to have believed Chris Sale could last the whole year, and he did. But again, that was a 10th round. What DeGrom you're going to have to take, right? What did we say his ADP was in here?
He was 46th, I think it was.
Damn.
Yeah.
Third or fourth round. Yeah, that third or fourth round. I mean, I feel like you're pretty much signing up to draft almost your SP3 and SP4 pretty high in order to kind of go boring. Like you can't go Crochet. You go Crochet DeGrom. I don't. You might be able to go on vacation early.
I had a guy like that in my points league. He was done by week 2. Strider was one of the ones he took.
Oh,
of course,
yeah,
a lot less risk in Strider at the time than we have in DeGrom today. By the way, Doug, to your point, 25 was the early pick on DeGrom, and 114 was the latest among any player in the top 15. The only other one that had a similarly wide one was Yamamoto, who we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. But the sandwich guys around these two, this is what is most interesting to me, is Chris Sale and Cole Reagans. And there's absolutely no question in my mind of taking both of those guys over DeGrom, and it's not even close.
Not close on that. Yeah.
Just takes one guy per league, though.
Indeed. But
right.
114th, this is the thing. Like you're saying, Rudy, 10th round. I don't think that's unreasonable to set that as the bar for Jacob DeGrom's value this year. And yet the low point in 146 drafts was he was taken 114th. So people are very optimistic.
Right. I mean, my model has him at 80 with 107 innings. I mean, that's it, which is, and I mean, the innings, don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting there 107 and like there's the model and all that stuff. And I just kind of tweak down the game starts. But, so yeah, I could see the upside. I don't hate his projections as much as I might with like a Crochet, where I'm like, ooh, I'm worried about their skill regression here, as maybe loses a mile or 2 miles per hour because he can't keep up with this. With DeGrom, I have less of that, but Yeah.
Not to blow up the slideshow, but what do you think about DeGrom versus Strider?
I mean,
Strider was, I believe, 40th among starting pitchers, which is about the point I would have expected to see DeGrom. Maybe a little bit ahead of that. I'd probably put DeGrom on here 30, 35.
right. I think
I'd rather have the guy who's healthy today.
Yeah, I mean that was the last minute cram session I was doing and looking at my numbers with Strider was like how many games did I penalize him, or did I basically say he's not going to be in? And my number right now is 40, so he'd be coming in mid-May. I mean, if I had Strider shares now, I would sign up right now if you told me his first start is May 10th or May 15th. So I'd probably bet the over I feel like I bet the over, and probably that'll probably turn into 60 days after this call. But yeah, I think that's fair. But the thing is, if you can get Strider in the 10th round, again, I feel a little bit better, except you've got dead weight on your roster at the worst time of year, because it's the year where you could be throwing out all your, bullets, just trying to find like a reliever or some breakout guy.
I don't think
Mostly
any of this is to
relievers.
decry what DeGrom does skills-wise. I mean, he, as I mentioned, it was an extremely small sample, but 3 starts didn't look to me all that much different than what he was before the surgery. This is the thing with Kirby. I love Kirby. This is my Mariners thing. I'm into those Mariners. Those Mariners starting pitchers is that Kirby, it was the splitter, the fact that he didn't use it last year. If he could bring that back, what he was a year and a half, 2 years ago, if he did that, Kirby is a locked-in top 10 guy. No question to me whatsoever. But even without it, I think he's top 12. And that's a floor I want to sign up for. I think he's the one who's being priced pretty appropriately here. I'm kind of surprised DeGrom's up in this tier.
It's been like 5 years, but if he was throwing 90 miles an hour late last year when he came back, maybe that would have knocked off a couple rounds. But he's still throwing fast, and look at him. Look at that smile. I mean, how do you not buy that, man? Like Kirby's like, there's no way I'm getting a swinging strike 3 on that. That's what if he swings, I am not getting strike 3. DeGrom's not worried about that. He's pitching like there's no tomorrow, because there might not be.
All right, let's go to our next guys. We have Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who is going 60th overall. These pictures, by the way, I have to admit, they pain me. I can't imagine why. No idea. But Garrett Cole, he's going up against Garrett Cole, who's going 62nd overall. I found this interesting that these two were going in very much the same range. And Garrett Cole, remember, was an automatic in the first round last year. I know that I myself went all into my keeper league to put him in as my ace last season. Made a big trade for him. That's all I needed. And of course, the elbow issue came up. Lost 3 months. How are you feeling about him, especially versus Yamamoto for this season? Rudy, I'll start with you this time.
That 2023, when his K rate went down like a nice level, I think it was from like 11 to like 9.5. It was a flag, but it was still hard. I mean, I think he was consensus SP2 last year after Strider. The fact that he had the elbow thing, so he's mortal. Because I thought only if he pitched in Pittsburgh he'd be mortal, but you combine that, and then last year he same K rate, so he had the elbow injury and same K rate. I feel like it's the new normal. With that, his walks are going to increase a little bit. I like Yamamoto here. He that first year obviously had some adjustments. Missed some time, but I'd rather take the shot on Yamamoto. I'm worried this is the new norm for Cole, is just an increasingly kind of just okay pitcher with more injury risk, because I think there's still the fear that with all that velo, all those innings, that there might be a bigger arm injury on the way. I wouldn't wish it on him, obviously. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but little concerns there, where with Yamamoto, I don't have any additional concerns beyond the endemic ones.
Doug, how are you feeling about these two? I know you're on board that Garrett bandwagon, aren't you?
I love Garrett Cole. He's been great for such a long time. But I do think that he's going to have, he's going to have more home run issues probably with that velo. I like Yamamoto a tick better. I will worry a little bit because Dodgers starters, they seem to get like weeks off here and there during the season because that's how they run things. They have like 8 starters and they run them in and out, rest them up or whatever they're doing. So he may not get the full, complement of starts, but I still like him a little bit better. I think he's going to have a little bit better metrics around him, and I'm not sure Cole's going to be the full-on horse that he's been, for the last years based on last year. So I'm going Yamamoto, but I think it's just a tick more than Cole, and I probably don't like either of them in this position, honestly.
Cole was down about a mile and a half on the average fastball after that injury last season. Definitely looked different to me. Did have a pretty solid rebound, but I think you'd expect that from an ace. I think he did just about as well as you could have expected for a pitcher who had the type of injury that he did. And granted, he had that one really, really hideous inning that I think everybody remembers. Beyond that, he was sub-3 ERA pretty much postseason and down the stretch, which, like I said, I didn't expect that. I'm probably a massive homer for saying I would rather go Garrett Cole here just because I think he's giving you more innings. Doug, I think the big differentiator for me is what you said. It's the way the Dodgers use starting pitchers, and I just play in a lot of leagues where it's maddening to me to not know exactly when he's going to start or what volume I'm going to get, and that's especially in any given week. I play all these weekly leagues, and a lot of them emphasize 2-start pitchers or specific matchups. And if Cole's going to give me 7 strong innings against a bad team, Yamamoto's – I'm going to have to know he's pitching sometime early in the week. I'm probably using him every start. Looked great. Skills were certainly there when he was healthy. The whole thing in Japan, that one game was just an aberration. He had the injury, but after that, 12 starts. He had 12 starts after that with a 2.41 ERA and a 29% strikeout rate. It's pretty tremendous. Got 4 solid pitches. I think he's going to be good. I think this is going to be very close between these two. But for a top 15 starting pitcher, ADP, I am going to take Cole. Just be a big homer, I guess.
Yeah. And would you take both these guys over DeGrom?
Oh, yes.
I would.
Without question, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's it only takes one. You're right, Doug. It's kind of a YOLO thing.
DeGrom is probably the only guy that I'm looking in that
one.
top 18 that doesn't belong there. And we've got C, Snell, Yamamoto, Cole. Michael King comes right after these two. Framber Valdez, Pablo Lopez. We can get to number 19. Number 19 is part of the next pair. Shota Imanaga is number 19. He's going 74th overall. But he's going up here against Roki Sasaki, and this one really stood out to me. I've had a couple of debates with league mates of mine, especially in the home leagues, over Roki going so early in the NFBC drafts. 77th overall, and this has not even been contingent upon his having signed with the Dodgers. He was going in this general range even before that. So we're looking at a solid, that would be just after the 5th round turn. But he's the 20th starting pitcher off the board. To me, that's kind of paying a premium. It's actually paying with the hope that he gives you Imanaga's numbers from last season, which is aggressive to me. Doug, how do you feel about the aggression in that ADP?
Well, I mean, I got so many thoughts. First of all, Sasaki, if I had one game where I really needed a guy, he'd be right up there for that one game. But again, Dodgers. And then also he had a little bit of weird injury risk coming in, I think that people were talking about. I don't know how to even think about that. I mean, that's just question mark for me. But man, the ceiling is high for Sasaki. I mean, he's just a great, talent. He had kind of a down year compared to the couple of years before, I think, in the Japanese league, and that's kind of weird. Okay, enough about him. Imanaga, I thought Imanaga had an amazing year last year, like really great year. Very underrated for how good he was all season. I would take Imanaga here because I feel very safe taking him. I think it's a good spot to get him. I'm surprised that he's going as low as he is. Frankly, I would get him a little higher if I had to. But man, Sasaki for that one game, I love him. But Dodgers again too. There's that too, right? Like he'll get that little rest or whatever and only pitch, 20 starts or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm Imanaga.
20 starts. I'd assume you'd have him
25, whatever it is.
510 innings.
I'm like 120. I don't know though. I mean, I'm question mark. I don't know what to think of Sasaki. I really don't. I mean, his ceiling's high. I know that. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I don't know. But Imanaga, I think I do know.
Yeah, I mean I think it's a fair thing you're saying about the Dodgers. I mean, they basically have to assume they're going to be in the World Series. And so you've got 25 innings, you're saving 20 innings for your better pitchers. And then with his usage, like he didn't pitch a lot per year. So I do think I have him at 128 innings. So I'm in the same thing. It's harder to feel great about the projections on him. Just because it's his first year in, but I do have Sasaki ranked higher than Imanaga. I had a lot of Imanaga last year. I thought that was a really good price to take the gamble on him. This one would be tough. I mean, I feel like this would be driven a lot by who I picked before, and if I had picked like kind of if I had a George Kirby, I think I'd want a Sasaki to pair with it. It sounded like I was getting drunk. It might be different otherwise. I'd say this one's closer coin flip. I probably would take the chance on Sasaki. There's like a coin flip and I wouldn't do it. Yeah, if there's two drafts and I had the same choice, I'd choose one of each.
But one thing I want to keep an eye on is how the Dodgers handle the contract status. Do they put him on the opening day roster? They're not going to use him in Japan in that opening series. What's the reason for rushing him onto the roster at the beginning of the year? He's not on the 40-man. He doesn't have to be on the opening day roster. You could buy a little time. Rudy, to your point about saving 20 innings at the end.
Yeah.
And could that mean he does hit 100? Just 100 innings for the regular season. So he saves the 20 we're all talking about for that October run. I think he's absolutely going to be one of their World Series pitchers. And I say World Series because I'm pretty confident the Dodgers are making it. I know 7-game series and the like, but they're pretty well stacked for this. And he's one of the big reasons why. I have a hard time drafting at this level for a pitcher who's going to give me that volume. And Doug, to your point, Imanaga was unbelievable. The thing that really stood out to me, his splitter, which he threw 31% of the time. Batters hit 204 and whiffed 43% of the time against it. I mean, that's pretty darn incredible.
Right.
Saki's got the same pitch, sure. He's got 3 of them. He's got a better profile than the 2 that preceded him, Yamamoto, we mentioned before, and Imanaga himself. But I don't think it's that much better that I'd take the chance. I would like to see a Dodger promise. He's going to be in that, what would that be? I think it's March 27th is the U.S. opener, that he's going to be in that rotation that day before I'm willing to jump as a top 20 starting pitcher. All right, let's go to our next pair, which we mentioned one of them before. Well, actually, no, we didn't. I'm confusing my Braves here because I've got a little bit of the text wrap here. Sorry for that. Spencer Schwellenbach of the Braves, and we have Hunter Green of the Reds. These two are going very close to each other, 93rd overall for Schwellenbach and 97th for Green. It's kind of a tough call here. You got a little bit more of the risk reward going with Green, of course. Schwellenbach with that phenomenal finish to last season. He looks legit for sure. Which one would you take? Doug, we'll start with you this time.
Why is Hunter Green looking so surprised? Come on, Hunter. I'm a Reds fan. You need to look like you belong here. Come on, man.
Maybe he's surprised it's not higher.
Maybe so. I mean, his strikeout rate is absurd. I love going to his games, and I skip the other ones and wait for him to come around again, basically. He's incredible. I'm still taking Schwellenbach, though, because I think he's probably better overall pitcher. Hunter Green could throw a no-hitter on any given day, but he also has those stinker days or the days where he's puking in the first inning or whatever it is. And Schwellenbach has just been, solid state. So I'm pretty impressed by Schwellenbach. I think he's going a little low for what I would reach a little bit for what he gives me. I hate this comparison though because I love Hunter Green a lot, but I think Schwellenbach's better.
I think that face is like, you're putting cinnamon in my chili.
Are they even calling it chili? That's what he's asking. Like, yeah.
What's that spaghetti doing there?
That's right.
Yeah, I hear. I mean, the challenge that I'm at with Hunter Green is that, the walk rate hasn't really come down a bit.
No.
The big improvement last year was that he didn't give up as many homers. And that part I don't trust. Like if you showed me the walk rate, very much a skill. Homer rate, I could a little bit more, a little less of a skill. So and then the feeling, so I feel better about the home park with Schwellenbach. The velo is really good there. Maybe they figure something out for this this next, 'cause it seemed like he had a pretty big jump in, like he found something in the minors a year and a half ago. So there could be some more there that might not be in the projection, but what he did show is really good control. So you get really control, at least hope for Ks, at least it's a decent floor. And I mean, that's what, the second best team in the NL, second or third best. I feel like the wins are a little bit better there. So I'd probably go Schwellenbach, even if my projections right now aren't saying it.
And Rudy, like you, neither of my projections nor my ranks currently say that Schwellenbach's the pick, and yet I'd pick him in this case. One of the things I have to do often is, being mostly a points league ranker at this stage, I'm after all the Ks in those formats. But in most of the leagues that we draft in, I'd rather have the safer guy here, and I think it's Schwellenbach. Even with the small sample caveat, I still think he's got the skills that are going to be a lot safer start over start. 5+ pitches. He had 2 of them that got greater than a 40% whiff rate last year. His walk rate was in the 95th percentile. You don't see that too often from a debuting pitcher, especially one who wasn't considered one of the tippity top prospects on the list for the Braves. He really made something of himself. Rudy, you mentioned about, he kind of found himself about a year and a half ago in the minors. And I love Hunter Green. Love the strikeouts. I'm going to rank him that way in points leagues, but for the most part, I'm going to take Schwellenbach on my teams. All right, let's go to number 7. Got another Yankee here, but not pictured that way. I wonder why. Max Fried goes up against Freddie Peralta. Fried is going 101st overall, and Freddie Peralta is going 109th. I should have picked up one of the press conference photos here, but I love the action of these two, because Fried's just a big-time strikeout guy, like Peralta is, I'm sure. Big contrast in styles between these two. Fried being the safe kind of guy. I do have mild injury questions about him, but Rudy, do you share that, or do you feel better about Peralta?
The K percent on Peralta I like better. He's been a bit more durable. Although I have him pretty much exactly the same on innings. I know I'm going to get a few more walks with Peralta. He's had his moments where that snaps into place, but I don't trust it. I don't know. This would probably be another roster construction one. I like both these guys at ADP for sure. But I probably would lean a little Peralta, like a 6 out of 10 kind of thing. I don't draft that much though, so it's gonna be a little tough.
Doug, where do you stand on these two?
Yeah, I think they're both really good value at this ADP. I really do like both players where they are. I would take, again, roster construction. I totally hear that. If you got strikeouts early, you can mess around a little bit. And typically that's what I want to do, is figure out how to get strikeouts earlier so I can get Fried here. I think Fried on the Yankees is a great fit. I think he's going to be really good. I only worry about don't get hurt, like always. But I think he's a better overall pitcher, even though Peralta does get you more strikeouts. I think Fried on the Yankees could win 20 games this year.
Right. Gosh, I'll sign up for that one. I'd love that promise. I always have a little bit of concern about a pitcher coming from a park like his into Yankee Stadium. How exactly is that going to translate? I don't think it's going to be as severe as most people would think. Yeah, there's the home run factor for lefties in that park. Otherwise, it's not quite as scary as you'd expect. He should be a very good, reliable, consistent pitcher. The ERA might just take a little bit of a turn north. In Peralta's case, the only thing that bothered me about him was that the strikeouts did come down over the second half. He did seem to be declining a little bit in that regard. So it's something I've got my eye on. But I still checking one of the stats on him. One of 4 pitchers who made 80 plus starts at a 30% plus strikeout rate and at a sub 3.5 ERA over the past 4 years combined, along with Cole, Max Scherzer, and Blake Snell. So he's been up there with some of the greats. Again, going to my points league rankings, I lean more towards Peralta just because I think there's better upside with K's.
It's weird. And he was a 3rd round pick last year. And I don't, was there really enough from last year or that suggests he should have gone down 4 or 5 rounds?
What happened the year before is he had a crazy second half. His second half the year before was absurd, and so he got a bunch of helium from that was undeserved. Really, is what I think. And I don't.
Now he's getting docked for the bad one.
Exactly.
Or the less great one.
Right. Exactly. Bad value last year, great value this year.
Is that what I was remembering? Where he somehow like reined in the walks for like that second half, and all of a sudden he was the K- walk king
He had the best. He really was the best pitcher in the National League the second half of the year before last. He really was. But last year not a great second half, and you see this wild swing. And to me, last year he was terrible value. This year I think he's good value. Same guy.
I'd agree.
Might be so it seems like Darvish-esque. Because there's very few pitchers that could yo-yo between very good control to poor control. And Darvish always seemed like one that would have these 2-month stretches of sub 2 and then be throwing 3.5, walks per 9. So maybe Peralta's got a little bit of that.
It's a good comp there. Yeah. I mean, it's rare to see a pitcher do that, but I'm with you. I think Peralta is a very good draft value. As a matter of fact, taking a look at any of the top 30, he was one of the first ones that stood out to me. When we were first putting together this list, that was the guy of any of them on here that I'm like, I'm all in on Freddie Peralta. I changed my stance a little bit, and the closer I looked at Max Fried, of course.
Yeah.
Needed to do that for some strange reasons, Yankee-wise. But
Fried's really good, and he's got lefty, and he's going to be really good for the Yankees. I mean, I love Fried.
I certainly hope so. Just stay healthy, Max.
Yes.
All right. Speaking of staying healthy, 2 guys with some injury questions, but very intriguing in different regards. Brian Wu of the Mariners, going to those Mariners pitchers again, 147th overall so far in ADP. Number 41 starting pitcher. Spencer Strider right now is going 40th at the position and 141st overall. We did talk a little bit about Strider earlier. Is this the right ADP? I'm not quite sure where to place him, to be honest, guys. I'm really not. It's a tough thing to do with Strider because we could see him at the end of April, or we could see him close to the All-Star break. And I feel like annually I'm always over-ranking the most talented Tommy John surgery pitchers. So, Doug, let's see, where do you stand with these 2?
Well, I do think Rudy's point earlier was correct, that if Strider is, right at the beginning of May, obviously you want him. I just don't believe it. I just don't think that's likely. I mean, it's possible, but it's not. And I'm not obviously I'm not a doctor. I don't know. Strider may be that guy, but I doubt it. I rather would bet that it's going to be a little longer. And because of that, it makes it a much harder question for me because I don't know how much longer. I like Wu a lot. I mean, I do like Wu a lot. I think he's a very good pitcher. He has had some injury issues in his past. So I'm not really sure that Wu is like a lock to get all of his innings. It just makes it a very murky question for me. And, put it all in a blender and I'm probably taking Wu. But if I am, then, it's very easy for me to see how that was a bad call.
Yeah, I have it that I just have Wu. This is way inflated for Wu based on his K%. and the fact is walks are going to be so I have him at like 230. So Woo's off my board. This I would think for now, despite my love of Ric Flair. The I mean
Yeah.
the Strider one. I mean, again, is like the 10th round. Like I could see it on a team where you just played it safe. Like this is your SP4. I feel like so you've gotten 3 starting pitchers, obviously, and that you've gotten a really good floor. And this is this for me would be this. I could see this being the one guilty pleasure, or like that one. Like you can't have a lot of these because your bench is useless in the leagues that I typically play, like NFBC. But yeah, right now I'd say like June 1 feels pretty good. Is that about when Cole came back last year? I know it was a different reason.
Cole was
But-
mid-June. It was June 12th, I think, somewhere in that range.
I feel like that feels like a good point where it's like I mean, 18 months to me is that part where I feel real good on a Tommy John, a guy coming back. But that'll be 14 months. I mean, at some point you've got to pull the trigger. So yeah, I'd go with this. I'd probably feel better in some formats like a 50 round league where I know I've got the volume to throw in there April and May, and I'm worried about August and September after attrition. So those I'd feel better about. In a fixed bench league, it's a little tougher, but Strider would be the only one because I wouldn't go Woo here.
I go Woo just because I feel I trust him right now, and that's about the only differentiator for me between these two. To be honest with you guys, I would hope I don't pick either one, and I'm taking somebody else in that range spot. I like Woo a lot. That's the whole Mariner thing I keep talking about. But he did miss time, Doug, as you said. It was at least 3 injured list stints, but 3 for separate issues: elbow, forearm, and hamstring.
Yeesh.
And he's got to stay healthy. That's one of the big obstacles for him so far in his career.
Yeah, and he did see
over that.
He did see the K percent go up in the second half, but it was only because it was so bad in the first half, I think. So it was kind of like regression to the mean in the positive sense, but it's never. So yeah, I could see it, especially in a points league. It's a no-brainer. I think this is really thinking like in a league where you could backfill, and this might be your one bet. So you're taking him instead of maybe a prospect that you don't feel good is going to be in there the first month or two. Got to be real judicious on it in my eyes.
But we're about 2 weeks away from the best shape of my life stories phase of spring training, but also the point where we're going to get better information about rehab processes for pitchers like this. So I think we're going to know a little bit more about Strider before the end of February that might guide us a little bit better on the return date. And have a lot of people paying attention to that.
It's going to be a tough. Yeah, I don't think we'll hear much even up to like main event drafts, and that'll be I mean, I think he'll go up just because all the pitchers go up and his upside. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough call, I think, because I think they'll be pretty quiet on it. Oh no, it's looking good, and he's on the backfield riding bikes and something and stuff.
I think we'll have some people in the know who get a little bit better read, a little bit more information than we have right now, because all I've seen is not ready for opening day.
Yeah, guys like Strider, though, it only takes one in a league. So again, the ADP gets warped by the one guy who just has to have him for whatever reason. So I never really trust ADP with guys like this very much.
Right. Well, you don't, and I mean, yeah, in auction leagues, the Spencer Strider versus the Spencer Schwellenbach. I mean, that's gonna get somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. All right, who do we got next?
Let's see who's next. Kodai Senga goes up against Robbie Ray, a couple of guys who had injuries of their own last season. Robbie Ray had a decent finish, then got hurt again, had a little bit of a setback. Senga returned and had an immediate setback, came back again unexpectedly in the playoffs. By the way, did either of you see that coming? Kodai Senga starting at the beginning of a series just out of nowhere against the Phillies.
It was the Mets. It's kind of like telling Jake it's Chinatown.
Well, both of these are going in the 11th. Well, Senga's wrapping the 15th on average. Robbie Ray is going just in the middle of the 16th. They're just outside the top 40 starting pitchers. It's a little rich to me, just on the surface. But Doug, how do you feel about these two?
I think they both involve forks. One of them has a ghost fork, and you can stick a fork in the other one. I'm going Senga.
I love it. Doug, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, the Senga one, you're basically paying the same price you had to pay for him in his first year with the Mets. It was because I got him. I know I got him in the 10th or 11th round, in like a main. That price is not bad. I mean, he got real lucky that year. Like he whatever his ERA must have been like a half run below his FIP. But he had the strikeouts. We know the Mets are gonna. We don't know that, but the Mets appear to be a good team. So we've got wins. It's a pretty good home park. And Robbie Ray's been the toughest part for me is it's the San Francisco. It's such a good pitcher's park. It seems tailor-made for him since when Robbie Ray grooves it, he really grooves it. I don't mind either. I'll take Robbie Ray just to make Tristan the true tiebreaker here. like some reality show, like it's the debate shows. Like no, I'm gonna have to go with that. Yeah, go ahead.
You're gonna let the hungry guy take out his fork and make the decision here. I like it. Okay. I was feverishly looking up Senga's ADP from last year because I wanted to see exactly how that compared, and then I realized we knew about the injuries in time that it deflated. He was 250th overall, so I don't think there's any comp to be made here. I personally would take Senga. I just see the ceiling being higher if he's healthy and all goes well. I don't know that I could trust either of these two for a guaranteed 25 plus starts. But I feel like Senga is I think he's a little bit more trustworthy between these two. I'm going with the ghost fork. All right, our next two is Ryan Pepe of the Rays, who's going 176th overall versus Brandon Pfaadt, who's going 182nd. That would be just around 50th among starting pitchers overall. I've been a big Ryan Pepio fan. In one of my sim leagues, that was one I took in the late rounds of a rookie draft and stashed him for a while. So I'm probably a little bit biased on him. But Rudy, where do you stand on these two?
Well, if we have concerns about how Dodgers treat, I think Pepio seems like he's just the next Ray who's going to get super managed. You're going to face 18 batters, and hopefully you've gotten through 5 innings so you can get a win. And I feel like that's one weird thing that the projections can't address. It says like the bad steamer, all that stuff. Like that it means it gooses you up a little bit because you didn't have to face. You only went 80 pitches or something. I'm going Pfaadt on this one. I like him better on the control side, so I feel like it gives me a little better on the whip. And the hope that with kind of his sweeper and everything, that he finds a little bit more in the Ks, that he might be in the ascension. He was really hot. Yeah, he was one of the top prospect guys, I think, for 2023. I think I could see this being like another jump up. Where with Pepio, I kind of think I think it'll be good. Taking a Ray at this point, like as an SP4, SP5, is generally a very good call. So I think I like both, but I'd go Pfaadt.
I think it's really close between them, and the tiebreaker for me was Pepia plays for Tampa and Pfaadt plays for Arizona, and I really don't like Arizona was like a horrible place to pitch last year. So I'm going Pepia.
It's like I can't stay up for those Arizona games. I thought that's what you were going to say.
I'm having a harder and harder time doing it myself. So.
I mean, Pepio's going to be out of the game before it's like 8:30 Eastern.
That's right. That's right. If anything happens to Pepio, he's out of there. We're not going to give him up any runs because, we got all these other guys, right? Give me that guy.
I think Pepio is very close to what he was last year. I really think he might take another step or two in his career during the peak years, but I think he's going to be one of those safe middle of the road types.
Yeah.
Brandon Pfaadt, to your point, Rudy, about him being a top prospect before, he did seem to blossom over the not entirely the second half, but down the stretch last season. July 27th forward, this I found interesting. 27.3% K rate, 5.5% walk rate. In the same time span, only 3 other pitchers had at least as good numbers in those 2 categories. And they were Logan Gilbert, we mentioned before, Tariq Skubal, and Zach Wheeler. Do you know what Brandon Pfaadt's ERA was in that time? 6.60.
Arizona, man.
I know.
Well, it's been a pretty good park to pitch in since they made that change. I think the humidor was the humidor change.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. I mean, that was one where if there's one of the regrets from last year was not getting more Skubal. I got him in a couple, but not going with him in the main really kind of, and because there's certain levels if a pitcher gets to where you're like, okay, I think this pitcher might be great. This is hard to fake. So the floor on Pfaadt, a guy who could put up those numbers feels maybe a little bit higher than people are giving him credit for. Well, I mean, maybe it's just a weird name. I don't know, because it's weird because a lot of prospects are going to have residual helium, and I mean his ADP. I mean 186 there's no helium there. To be the 52nd starting pitcher, so yeah.
I think it's tremendous value. I actually have Brandon Pfaadt in my top 40 starting pitchers. I might be a little bit too optimistic about him, but I think there's going to be some major correction of that ERA. I like the value a lot. All right, let's see our last pair, and then we're going to get into some sleeper picks of ours. Wanted to get a little bit of the old 80s tops looks into here. Louis Steele.
I was going to say, I know those cards.
Against, Josh Bradley. You remember these, right, Rudy?
Oh, yeah, no. So each of these cards is worth 2 cents. These are the these are the inflated cards. I've got way too many of them.
What's really crazy is these 2 actual cards are probably worth multiple times what the actual 87 and 88s are, but it's off the topic.
Nice.
Rudy, who would you take among players pictured here?
I mean, I've got Bradley as a great value here. Maybe I might be a little bullish right now on his innings. I mean, I got him at 170. Given he's a Ray, that feels bullish. But I feel like Gill kind of had a really hot start, trended down after that. Control kind of went. The K rate came down to earth. So Bradley'd be an easy call for me here, even if, maybe I'm a little too high on him right now because I have him right now at 160 overall in value, but I have Gill at 260.
I have him a little closer than that, but I also favor Bradley for pretty much the same reasons. I think Gill had a pretty good year last year, and I think he can do it again. But I think part of his value came from the wins. I don't know that he'll repeat that, but I do like Bradley.
I'm a very big Bradley fan, too. Final 20 starts last season, 3.71 ERA, 1.22 whip. He was 11th in strikeouts in the majors over that time span.
That's
Rays pitcher. Hard to bet against that. I think they're going to manage him well this year, too. I think he's got considerable more upside than Pepio. We just mentioned Pepio before. He's going sooner than Taj Bradley, which I find a bit surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I have Bradley 60 spots ahead overall, not as pitchers. So that's kind of surprising to me, too, especially because they have the same pedigree. If anything, maybe Bradley's is a little bit higher because Dodger pedigree is kind of, they a little bit besmirched. Anyone see Bobby Miller?
Bobby Miller was pretty deep down there, 114th among starting pitchers.
I just had to adjust him down even further. I don't know if he sees a game started.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering is how does he get a start? What does he have to do?
No, I mean all that range of those guys that were like the lottery, like Michael Grove, and there was Gavin Stone, like it's like I don't know what they are. I mean, like you've got like 5 Cadillacs in the rotation, or no, more like Lexuses.
Good situation for them
Those
to
are
have.
Japanese. No.
But those pitchers are gonna what we were talking about before with Sasaki. You could just throw Bobby Miller in at the beginning of the year, eat a couple of starts for the other pitchers, and keep them fresh for the World Series. So it's a good
I don't
situation.
even think Miller makes that list though, because they have all these other guys. I mean, there's so many guys.
They do. All right, let's get to a couple of the sleepers while we have a couple minutes here at the end. We were talking about that going into this. Doug, I'll start with you on this one. Any guys that we haven't mentioned here are digging even deeper. Who would be your ADP sleeper?
I don't know, Bob, if this is a sleeper, but I'm curious what you guys think about Brandon Woodruff. When's he coming back? What kind of year do we think he's going to have?
Rudy, what do you think?
I mean, right now I've got him at like 138. I don't have a good feel for him yet when he's coming back. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, but I mean, he's had elite skills, so a guy definitely wouldn't mind taking a chance on. If at the price he's going to come, I mean, like, yeah, I mean that's similar to like what I feel like where he is right now is probably pretty similar to where Walker Buehler was last year, and it didn't work out. But I'm saying I mean, to get something like that in the 15th round of a 15-round league, to me is like no brainer, and you just fingers crossed.
So he's top 75 for me in points, but we dock him because of usage there. Obviously, because he's missing time, he's going to get a lower rank in this format. If I make the adjustment, he's top 55 among starting pitchers for me. I'm with you. I need to hear something more about him, get a definitive return date, what the innings total is going to be. I'm probably
you get
more
all that going, then you're not getting him so low if it's not terrible news, right? Mm-hmm. If it's not terrible news, you're probably not going to get him that low.
Right. But I'd be more apt to draft him in that case if I felt more optimistic. So he's 65th among starting pitchers in ADP right now, which I think sounds about right. To be honest, I'd be in on him at that price.
All right.
Rudy, who have you got?
This one's tough because, yeah, I try to start years on a complete blank slate. So I'm just digging through on my rankings and looking for some major. This one, no, that doesn't work. I mean, I've always had a sweet spot for Nick Lodolo, but it just hasn't happened yet, and I don't know if this would be the year I'd call it out.
He's 75th among starting pitchers in ADP. I agree with you that that's pretty good value for him.
Yeah, the upside just feels so good that I just hope he puts it together. So if we're talking a true sleeper, a guy that, I mean, how low is he got? What did you say his ADP is right now?
75th among starters.
I feel like that qualifies. So yeah, I would take a shot at him and just like, first at least at that price, if he gets injured, misses time, you could cut and not feel like too bad about it.
Doug, you haven't knocked us down yet.
Well, I'm a Reds fan, but I'll tell you, he's going to get injured. He gets injured every year. He trips over the foul line, and there goes 3 weeks, I mean, it's crazy. But he is very, very good when he pitches. He is. So you get a little of both. The thing I like about rostering a guy like Lodolo a little bit, maybe not in main events, but he's going to get, when he pitches, he's really good. So if you can have a guy that fills in with him, kind of like the Dodgers, then you got something.
All right, I'll throw a guy here, Gavin Williams of the Guardians. The number 72 starting pitcher. Dealt with elbow
Wow.
issues last year. Granted, yes, I know there's risk because of that, but I think that's deflating his price. He's outside the top 70. I'm all in
Uh,
all day. The velo's there, curveball cutter. And I wrote this in my notes. Got to read that one. Bring back the 2023 slider when he had a 157 BAA and a 32% whip. Love to see that. Gavin Williams could really thrive if he did that.
Oh, huge fan. Had a lot. I think last year he started the season injured. So he was a guy that I forgot how he was. Either he was like a guy you had to stash at a late pick, or you can. But yeah, I'm a big Gavin Williams fan. I mean, Cleveland has really graduated a lot of very good pitchers. Granted, they go for college sometimes, but yeah, I like that pick.